So hello and welcome to the New Gig podcast. I'm your host, Glen Hodgson. And today I'm delighted to be joined by the Managing Director of CXC, Mr. Connor Heaney. How are you doing, Connor?
Glen, I'm really well. What a lovely introduction, I have to say, Glen. It's so good to see you. You're looking well as ever. Thanks so much for having me on.
Likewise, sir. And let's begin by just saying a little bit about, yourself, Connor, a little bit more about CXC and kind of your place within this whole thing we're calling the gig and the platform economy.
Yes, Glen. So my own background, I've been the managing director here at CXC Global EMEA for coming up to 6 years, Glen. So it's been quite the journey, and I mean that in the best possible way. So when we started the European business, we had zero revenue, zero clients, zero contractors under management. We had a team of 1+1 in Australia who was Orla Burns, and we had the chairman and founder of CXC Global, Dave Thomas, providing his time for free. But
yeah.
Over the 6-year period, I'm incredibly proud of what the team here has achieved. You know, we're not 2 people anymore. We're a team of 60. We're headquartered in Dublin. We got 13 legal entities across the world. We're part of the wider CXC Global group of companies that has 65 entities globally. And we manage here in Europe around 4,000 freelancers and contingent workers or contractors, Glen. And we've got established relationships with some of the world's biggest companies, from Boeing to RELX to eBay to PayPal, Google, Medtronic. So we've built this incredible business, essentially de-risking big customers from labor law and contract misclassification and tax chain liability. And as you'll appreciate, Glen, and as you know well, actually, you're at the heart of this too. The regulatory environment globally is converging in terms of how independent contractors are classified, and all the liability is essentially being flowed back up to the end user. So you've got almost these two competing things. You've got that labor law changing and putting the emphasis back on the end user, but then you've got the low choice, no choice gig workers that have no protection or limited protection. They're treated in many cases as independent contractors when they should be employees or some form of temporary agency worker. But I'm sure we'll come on to that. But my own background, I grew up in Belfast in Northern Ireland, hence as I would describe it, my dulcet tones, Glen. Went to uni like many Northern Irish people in Scotland. There's 2 universities where I went to in Dundee. I went to the worst one. I think it was 121 first ranked in all the UK universities. And then I went and studied law at Queen's University in Belfast, worked in criminal law briefly, worked in commercial law briefly, bored out of my mind, went into headhunting / recruitment in London and then Dublin, and then moved into this workforce management, contingent workforce solutions in the MSP world. And I just found that really interesting because what I found difficult in recruitment to deal with was that it was very tactical. It was really enjoyable, very high octane, very adrenaline focused, but you weren't really solving a wider strategic problem. And that's what I liked about workforce solutions and MSP. And I then moved into technology. I joined one of the early stage technology talent matching platforms, and unfortunately, it went. It didn't go very well. But it was a bit too early for the market. That was back in 2014, 2015, and then I joined CXC Global at the beginning of 2015. And as I said, it's been a great journey. I'm based in Ireland now, West Coast of Ireland. I'm living in the middle of nowhere, Glen. So we're really practicing what we preach here about hiring anyone, anywhere. That's what we do as a global business now. I can't take any credit for it. We were ahead of the trend. We got to the countryside before the pandemic, and it served us well. The other thing, Glen, if I could just mention, our European business, CXC Global EMEA, we've been fully remote and distributed since word one. Again, I can't take any prescience or I wasn't cognizant about this great trend coming. It was simply a matter of reducing our cost base, right? A startup company, albeit in an established global one, we had to keep the cost lean and mean. But what we found, Glen, even back then, 6 years ago, and we still find it now, is people love working from home, right? The pandemic has proven it, but we proved it as an organization, and people, the right people in the right environment, which is oftentimes their home, we judge them on their efficiency and effectiveness, and we
Mm.
delegate authority and we delegate opportunity to them, and it works bloody well. So anyway, that's an aside more than anything. So good to see you, Glenn.
No, but I think that's very important, because that just shows that that people are happier. People are craving flexibility, and if there's some crumbs of comfort or crumbs of positivity we can take out of this terrible global pandemic, it's the fact that people have had their eyes open to the power of technology, the possibilities of technology, and the fact that remote work is something that's here and now, and it's achievable. And I think, as you're saying there, to be able to deliver impact, to be able to deliver value, and to deliver results for your sort of partners and customers, that at the end of the day is the most important thing, as opposed to being in a certain place, in a certain building for X number of hours a day, 5 days a week.
Yeah, I fully agree with you, Glenn. And the other thing, sorry, I should have mentioned, is that the world of work has clearly changed for the pandemic reasons. The people crave flexibility, but another force accelerator, force multiplier, Glenn, has obviously been the emergence of the gig and the platform economy. And I think the great propellant of that was the Great Recession of 2008, 2010.
Right.
It created innovation, right? Companies had to innovate, but more importantly, a lot of companies moved from a fixed employment cost model to a variable model, and thousands, millions of people were displaced from employment, and suddenly they found themselves in this nascent gig economy, and they had
Yeah.
to grasp it with both hands. And I suppose we're big proponents here of the gig platform and open talent economy, but how we position ourselves in it, Glenn, is as what we would describe as the compliant connector, because as you'll appreciate, there's a lot of risk for platform companies when they engage workers, either
Right.
as an independent contractor or as an agency worker. But most times the workers are engaged as independent contractors when potentially they should actually be engaged as temporary workers or temporary employees. So we really see ourselves as being that that heartbeat, or that heart at the gig economy when it comes to compliance,
Yeah.
vetting, background checking, payroll. I mean, it probably sounds boring to your listeners. Of course, I'm incredibly enthused about it, Glenn, but it's a great position for us to be in, because we're protecting those low choice, no choice workers who are often unfairly put into independent contract work when they should be temporary agency workers. And we're affording opportunity to the higher end, high choice workers that have the ability to work globally or work anywhere, but we're putting that compliant wrapper around it. So probably I should have added that on your first question, Glenn.
But I think this is absolutely crucial, because we look at the differences between traditional and platform work, and one of these things is the still now, as many people want to do it. If we look at sort of the statistics and studies which are showing the number of people who really want more flexibility and want to sort of go through this, the gig and platform economy lifestyle, what seems to be stopping them is the fact that this fear of the unknown. They don't want to do something wrong. They don't want the administration and all the problems with maybe the tax authorities, or they want someone to be able to give them that safety net, to be able to take care of these things and make sure they're doing things properly, that the taxes are paid, the social security contributions are there, that things are being properly. So I think that far from being boring, what you're actually providing is sort of the lifeblood that's going to sustain and help grow this thing that we're calling the platform economy. So absolutely vital, Connor.
Yeah, and like Glenn, I know you and I have spoken about this before, and I know you are a huge advocate for improving workers' rights in the gig and platform economy, and essentially standardizing them across Europe, because there's such a mishmash of how workers are treated. I know we've got things like the agency workers regulations and the agency workers directive, but each law is very different in terms of how workers are engaged in each country. And in our view, there needs to be a standard playing field there. But the other thing, Glenn, I know we're both incredibly passionate about, and if I can say this, is that workers operating in the gig and platform economy as either independent workers or temporary agency workers, they're essentially denied access to proper financial services, right?
Yeah,
This to
100%.
me, Glenn, is becoming ever more common. It's troubling me
Mm,
personally and morally that the workers providing a service cannot get access to mortgages,
yep.
car loans, car finance, even bloody things like life insurance, right?
Yes.
Um,
Yep.
like I think that's something that needs to be on our list to advocate and talk about, because essentially now we're looking at millions of people essentially being unbanked, if you
Mm.
like. That's beginning to cause me a great deal of concern. Glenn, what's your thoughts on this? Are we aligned on that, do you think?
Yeah, I think we absolutely are. And I think that we're aligned on the size of this issue. And this is not just a European issue. I think it's a global issue, and is creating a two-tier society. And one of the biggest rifts between the traditional and the platform economy, the fact that, you can't have access to the parts of life that pretty much necessary for most of us, and being denied that is going to make you a second-class citizen. So absolutely, and this is for me a call out to the big banks, the insurance companies, but also we're seeing as well, which is the sort of the ray of hope within this, is the startups and scale ups who are actually seeing this need. And I think, given the sort of the shift towards more sort of platform temporary work, more flexible arrangements, that the traditional financial services providers, as well as the new players, these individuals who actually have to address this need and actually offer products and services to meet this requirement, to fill the gap. It's a massive untapped market. I mean, let's be honest about it. It creates a two-tier society at the moment, but once that is addressed, it's a huge business opportunity. There's so much money to be made from addressing this and actually giving the products and services that workers are crying out for.
Yeah, I agree. Who would ever have thought, Glenn, that you can make money from being fair? Right?
Yeah.
But it's true. And
Yeah.
you're right.
Yeah.
And I think it'll be good to see the traditional financial services players, in my view anyway, Glenn, being disrupted or displaced as the economy start to move towards this more flexible,
Yeah.
variable work
Yeah.
model. And they're going to have to move in that direction, because there'll be less people in permanent pensionable jobs for life. I mean, those jobs
Yes.
are gone. Like, how
Yeah.
many people do I know, or do you know, Glenn, that have been in the same job they were in 10 years ago?
Right. Yeah.
If you had asked me that 10 years ago when I was much younger, of course, the answer would have been very different. Loads of people. but
Yeah.
now, you ask me 10 years, most of my friends, bar my mates that are teachers and whatnot, they
Right.
probably don't want the good pension scheme for teachers in Ireland, right? But excluding the teacher mates, Glenn, most people are doing something very different from what they were
Yeah.
doing 10 years ago. So
Mm.
that job for life, that pensionable permanent job, in my view, it's largely gone outside
Yeah.
the public sector.
I agree, and I think that we understand that the financial services sector is quite conservative, but it's absolutely crazy to have a credit model which is based on show me your employment contract and show me your pay slips for the last 6 months, and based on that, I will be able to lend you some money. I mean, the financial services sector has come under a lot of criticism in recent times, and quite rightly so. But they're doing themselves no favors by not being able to adapt to the reality that's around them, and that's knocking on the door. And if they don't address this, then they're basically their customer base will change, move on, and find something different.
Yeah, great. Like, it could be the case that the mainline banks' only customers are public sector people
Yep.
or pensioners.
Yeah, basically, this is what it could go down to, and you've got this sort of the majority of the population will be looking for something more suited and tailored to their needs, and
Yeah.
I welcome it, because if you don't adapt, if you don't change, then you don't deserve the custom of the majority of the population.
Yeah, fully agree, mate.
That's fantastic. That's fantastic. And I think that this key thing here is the sort of the role that digitalization is playing on society more generally, but particularly in sort of the where you're working, and how CXC Global is being active. The sort of the way in which the labor market has changed, and you've been sort of very agile to be able to meet this trend head on and be able to give products and services which actually facilitate that as well.
Yeah, I agree, Glenn, and thanks for that. I suppose even though we've digitized a lot of processes in our business, Glenn, we're probably still at the early stages of the journey. I think we've got a lot more to do, but I think some of the cool things we've done is that we've digitized the compliance journey for about 65 countries, right? So as you'll appreciate, all the laws are different per country in terms of labor law, contractor misclassification. So we've digitized that journey, and that's been really helpful for our clients. So let's say, a large technology company wants to engage workers in the UK. We can take them through that compliance journey and workflow, and it's a digital self-service experience. It's fully automated, and we're really pleased about that, Glenn. That's called CXC Comply. And then in our payroll and compliance business, we've digitized that workflow and that journey for workers too. So it's a self-service. They upload all their compliance related journeys, and it's very seamless and frictionless. And that has enabled us to provide this hire anyone, anywhere model compliantly, right? So as you've probably seen, Glenn, in the marketplace, there's clearly a labor shortage. So what that has meant is that, let's say, we've seen huge growth in American companies seeking to hire talent in Europe, right? And because they can't get that same talent in the USA, and that's good for them, but they don't want to set up legal entities and all that sort of stuff. So we've been helping them hire those workers compliantly and in accordance with local labor laws, and we've digitized that process, which is of course really helpful for them because it makes it a really speedy process. But the other reason companies are coming to Europe is for labor arbitrage or talent arbitrage opportunities, because if you think of a software company in San Francisco, Glenn, they might have to pay upwards of $400,000 to get a really amazing architect or developer, whereas they could get someone as good, if not better, in Poland for 2/3 less, right?
Absolutely.
So we're seeing this talent arbitrage movement, right? This hire anyone, anywhere movement for cost saving reasons, that labor arbitrage, but also the ability to access talent anywhere, right? So in my view, there's two benefits to that. There's the obvious benefit to the company. They're going to save money on labor costs, but you're also leveling the global playing field in a way, right? Because if your average salary in Poland, let's say, I don't know what it is, but let's say, for example, it's $60,000, right? If you're bringing a software developer or architect up to $90,000, then you're creating more demand and money in the economy, and you're leveling, not fully leveling, of course, because there's still that disparity between the income in USA and the income in Poland. But of course, the labor costs are higher in San Francisco than they would be in Gdańsk, Poland, right? But
labor costs, living costs.
Living costs, but you're affording the worker access to opportunity anywhere, and you're affording the worker access to higher earnings. And I think it's a bloody great thing. Now, of course, you'd expect me to say that, Glenn, but
it is. Well, the facts are there. Yeah,
I think everyone wins. The end company wins and the worker wins, because they're going to be being paid more than their local peers working for an equivalent bank in Poland, right? So that's good. So we've digitized that onboarding process, Glenn. We've built out that infrastructure because we're in 65 odd global countries. So that's working really well. I think the next evolution of our digital journey is around really being that compliant connector within the gig and platform economy, so that we've built multiple APIs into freelancer.com, into, let's say, Uber or Delivery or Glovo, so that we can seamlessly replicate that onboarding and compliance process, and it looks and feels to a driver, a Glovo driver, a delivery driver, as if they're working with Uber, but really it's CXC in the back end doing the compliance and the payroll and all that boring, as I described it, but really necessary stuff. That blood that's pumping the gig economy. So that's probably the next stage of our digital journey, and then creating a global talent community as well, that we can allow workers in that community to access jobs anywhere in the world, and then of course we can make those workers compliant given our global infrastructure and reach. So it's really exciting, Glenn. Really exciting for our business. But it's just so interesting to me how quickly the world of work has changed. All these seismic shifts,
Totally.
right?
Yeah. Yeah.
This huge forced remote working thing that's happened, and how well people and companies have embraced that, and they love the flexibility. And then this labor shortage has emerged for multiple reasons globally. That's fascinating, and how that can be solved. And then the fact that the world has now opened up, the geographical constraints when it comes to hiring or affording or accessing talent is gone.
Yeah.
Right? So for me, this is exciting. And then you've got the growth of the digital and the platform economy, and people wanting gigs or multiple gigs. They want that freedom, the flexibility. They don't want to be working for the man for their whole life. Right?
Yeah.
They don't want to be working for Big Bank A or Big Bank B or whoever the hell it is.
Yeah.
They want to get out of there, and they want more control over their own destiny in their life. So for me, as someone and who's run the company, at the heart of all this, of course it's fascinating, of course it's challenging, of course there's opportunities, but it's just so interesting, Glenn, to see this. Like, we're seeing a once in a lifetime thing happening here, and it's all happening at once. It's fascinating.
Yeah. And it really is a sort of a huge change, and it's going very, very quickly. And I think the sort of the speed is just picking up. So what is the advice you'd give to companies who need to get to adapt their HR model and actually sort of get a sort of freelancer strategy, but also for individuals? How can they make the most of this huge change, which is on the go? Because you've got a great vantage point at the moment to be able to sort of give a few hints and tips about what to look for and what you should be doing.
Yeah, well, thanks, Glenn. So I suppose what we're seeing really smart companies do to access talent anywhere is to embrace the open talent model. So that can be bringing freelancer or talent marketplaces into their enterprise, right? So that's giving them access to workers in India, Australia, Poland, Germany, and it's giving them volume. So if you look at freelancer.com, they've got nearly 60 million people on their platform now, right? That's a phenomenal amount. So I think I would recommend organizations to explore this open talent model. And if I could give them a really interesting statistic. So I met with Diane Finkhausen recently, who ran GE's open talent ecosystem for about 5 or 6 years, right? In a 5-year period, they got 6 billion of cost saving, right? $6 billion US dollars, right? So that was pre-pandemic. Before all the things that we've discussed. So it can work, and it can work at scale, right? So imagine what that model would look like now. The other thing I would recommend is that organizations should have a contractor value proposition or freelancer value proposition. Of course, they can't offer the benefits that they can offer employees, because that's going to put them on the hawk for labor law problems and misclassification. But they need to have a strategy around why a freelancer would come and work for them. Is it for the technology? Is it for the culture? Is it for the brand name? Whatever it is, they need to think really deeply and hard about that and develop a freelancer attraction strategy for their business, right? Also, we've been discussing a lot, Glenn, over the last 3 years, and the conversations have accelerated around this, is around direct sourcing, which is essentially hiring freelancer talent in the same way that you would in an RPO model. So a third party or intermediary will go to the market under, let's say, Unilever's brand, attracting freelancers and independent contractors on a global scale into a talent pool that can be reused and redeployed. And the workers in the talent pool can be given incentives, from referrals to affiliate schemes, to really build up that warmth for that particular company. They might get a voucher for Unilever's products in the post. There's all these sophisticated ways of warming up that talent pool and deploying that talent pool. And then I think when we think about freelancers, I think if I was a freelancer, what would I be interested in working in with an organization? Like, if it's a technology freelancer, then I'm going to be interested in the latest, greatest technologies, the ability to influence and design elegant solutions at scale. But if I'm an independent worker in the low choice, no choice bucket, as we've described it, Glenn, I want some I want access to things that I can't access today. I
Yeah.
want access to financial services. I want access to affiliate schemes. I want access to opportunity. I want fairness. I want to be engaged properly. I want some employment protection, right? They might not get all, but they want something. So we need to think as practitioners in this space, but also advising the companies we work with to start thinking about what freelancers and independent workers and temporary agency workers or extended or alternative workforce workers need and want, and start providing for them.
And this goes back to your point about doing the right thing and being nice is actually very good for business as well. If you actually meet this need, then you get them, you get the talent and the value that maybe your competitors don't get it if you're an early adopter and you adapt to this quickly.
Yeah, absolutely, Glenn. And I think that's what we're seeing in the marketplace. But that would be some of the advice or tips that I would give for companies that are grappling with these problems at the moment.
Fantastic. Well, this is great, and it's always fantastic to be able to pick your brains, hear your thoughts, and just continue with the great work that you're doing. And we're looking forward to having you back soon so you can give us an update on the journey.
Well, Glenn, thanks so much. And as always, I thoroughly enjoy our conversation. It's so good to see you. And thanks so much for having me on. I really do appreciate it. Thank you, Glenn.
Pleasure, Connor.